A couple of years ago, the eyes of the nation, the eyes of the world, the eyes of CNN, the eyes of every media reporter on the planet was suddenly focused on the Twin Cities metro area around this exact topic that we're talking about right now. Folks would ask me what I thought the takeaways were about the murder of George Floyd. I remember telling people over and over again, I think the most important thing you have to know about the murder of George Floyd is just how fundamentally unsurprising it was in the course of American history. Sadly, of course that was going to happen. You know, I'm a part of a community of people who have watched this play out for a number of years. And I think we've been doing it wrong. And I share this with my team a lot. We, me and you, inherited a model of city building that I think is backwards and messed up. We are told, when I got elected office, folks said, listen, your biggest jobs are public safety and economic development. And where public safety is concerned, all they really mean is our job is to sort of find all the bad guys in the community and lock them up and get them out of the way so us good guys can go about our life, right? And where economic development is concerned, all we mean is get all these local residents out of the way, get all these local businesses out of the way, and let's see if we can find some business in Memphis or Miami or Minneapolis, and we can give them some money and get them into our community. All I'm saying is the models of city building that we've inherited together are models that value place over people. The model of public safety that we've inherited says we're going to draw a circle and we're going to put some people on the edge of that circle, and their job is to just protect the people who we think are inside the circle from the people who we think are outside the circle at all costs. And it's incredible for me because I'm going to tell you this, I'm black. No, I have been all of my life. Which means I was once a 16-year-old boy. Which means I was once a 17-year-old driver behind the wheel of a two-tone gray 1984 Monte Carlo, which every police officer on the planet would tell you is the most stolen car in America, pre-Kia and Hyundai. And I could spend the rest of your time here today telling you about my stories of being pulled over and knowing I wasn't speeding. At the same time, I know many of you know my father is a retired St. Paul police officer. So when we look at that circle, it's intriguing because I grew up on both sides of that line. I grew up literally on both sides. I grew up knowing what it feels like to be inside that circle, and I grew up knowing what it feels like to be outside of that circle. And so for many of the first couple of years of my administration, I would tell people, if you go through this city and ask people, and it sounds funny, but it's not, if you ask people what they don't like most about their mayor, the two most common answers you get is he's hired too many police officers, and he hasn't hired enough police officers. Which sounds funny, but it demonstrates the gap that exists, that line creates, based on whether I perceive myself as in front or behind those officers. And so all we're talking about when we talk about reimagining public safety is we're talking about a public safety system that focuses on, get this, public safety. A couple of years ago, St. Paul, post-COVID, we saw this big spike in violent crime across the country. In St. Paul, like many places around the country, we experienced a record number of homicides in our community. And a reporter looked at me and said, you spent all this time talking about reimagining public safety. Given that St. Paul has just experienced a record number of homicides, do you still feel like public safety should be reimagined, and why? And I said, well, yes. Because we just experienced a record number of But that's a psychosis. And that's one of the psychoses that I have to live, that our lieutenant governor has to live, is every day. We're surrounded by people, and public safety is the most pronounced. We're surrounded by people who will tell you, and the people who will tell us the loudest, that we are dissatisfied with all of the outcomes we have ever experienced with regard to our public safety infrastructure are the exact same people who will get loudest to block us from changing our public safety infrastructure. I want you to know that in St. Paul, we're advancing this model that we call our community first public safety framework that starts with saying, well, actually it doesn't. It's It starts way before somebody calls 911. Because I tell folks a lot, like I think part of our problem with public safety in America is we've mistaken public safety for emergency response.
Right. Yeah.
So like in my house I have a 3-year-old, right? And if you were to tell me our plan to keep her safe was to make sure that somebody goes to jail after they do something bad to her, we'd have to talk some more. Public safety is about those little plastic plugs that I put in the outlet to keep her from getting hurt. It's about those little foam things I put on the corner of the table. It's about us figuring out what are all of the things that could befall this little child and how do we safeguard our home. And if you show me a neighborhood where we are concerned about public safety, I'll show you a neighborhood who hasn't been invested in from a safeguarding. Our goal is to safeguard, our goal is to right-size our responses, because we all know this, there are problems that just can't be solved with handcuffs and badges. Our goal is to make sure that we do have handcuffs and badges when there are problems that require handcuffs and badges, because we know that our community members deserve to be protected as well. So our goal is to make sure that we do have those available when we need them. And when they show up, they are someone who is helping us up and not putting anything in the mess. And our goal is to make sure that we are constantly thinking of in just the way we will in Thanksgiving. This is the last thing I say. We all have families, and many of us will celebrate. And you know who I'm talking about. You got that cousin or that brother, that person in the family that we all know, you know, they need some help. And I tell folks all the time, I don't think a city is a stack of buildings and streets. I think a city is a family that has to take care of one another. And next week in Thanksgiving, we know that family member who needs some help, we're going to call them and make sure they show up. We're going to make sure they get some food, right? And that's what this is about. It's saying, instead of a system that says, you know what, if we think you're on the margins, our goal is going to be to push you further away. We're building a system that says, if we think you're on the margins, our goal is to pull you in so that you can be a part of our thriving community. That's what reimagining public safety is about. And that's also why I'm excited to introduce my big sister to talk to you next, because here in Minnesota, it's so exciting. We don't have to be on an island where we're saying this stuff and shouting and shaking our fists at the clouds. We have people in positions of power who agree with this, who are righteous, who are on our side where this is concerned. And let me tell you, our next speaker is somebody I've known for 2 decades now, who I've seen speak truth to power and be in all the right spaces at all the right times, who I've been just admired for a really long time, have been inspired by every single time I hear her speak. That is my Lieutenant Governor and yours, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
My big brother, Mayor Carter, big brother, laid it out, and I don't know if you see the family resemblance or not, but he laid it out. When we talk about public safety, we have to challenge what we mean. It's not simply law enforcement. It means that will someone look for me if I go missing? Does someone feel safe when they're walking in their neighborhood as a Latina woman in Rochester, which is a conversation I had yesterday? Do our children have what they need to thrive? Are we investing in the first 1,000 days of their lives like the 3-year-old that is at home with Mayor Carter? And if we're talking about the need for public safety, then that means that families have resources to put food on the table and to be stably housed. So a child tax credit that will lower child poverty by 1/3 is public safety. And that work is through policy, and that work is through community, and that work is through building relationships and trust with each other. Get you English. Thank you so much.